Get ready, guys. It's playtime.
Who's the greatest team of all? Watching little monsters when you call. Who's that knocking at your door? Esme and Roy. They're not kidding about monster sitting and having some monstery fun. So all you monster girls and monster boys, get ready for Esme and Roy. Esme and Roy. Monster sitters. When they play, they're gonna save the day and chase those monster problems away. Esme and Roy. Monster sitters. In your place with the monster case, they're gonna put a big smile on your monster face. They're just smitten with monster sitting. Esme and Roy.
Today's panel discussion with Animaze, Nelvana, and Sesame Workshop, providing a behind-the-scenes look at Esme and Roy. Before we begin today, I just want to acknowledge the lands and territories that we're all coming from today. Animaze, the Montreal Animation Film Festival, it operates on unceded Indigenous lands that are the traditional territory of the Kanien'kehá:ka Nation. Tiohtià:ke, or Montreal, is historically known as a gathering place for many First Nations, including the Kanien'kehá:ka of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the Huron-Wendat, the Abenaki, and the Anishinaabe. Nelvana is headquartered in Toronto, the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. And we also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. And finally, Sesame Workshop is based in New York City, which is on ancestral Lenape homelands, and we recognize the long-standing significance of these lands for Lenape nations past and present. Today, all of these cities are home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people, and we encourage you all to take the time to reflect on the history, treaties, and the traditional keepers of the land of which you inhabit. And with that, it's my pleasure to introduce today's moderator, Lori Gordon. Lori is the director of the Animaze Montreal International Animation Film Festival since 2013 and Animaze Animation Day in Cannes since 2014, creating alliances in animation, VR, and 360. She is also a film festival circuit professional and speaker at industry conferences. Lori curates international, Canadian, and First Nations animated films at international film festivals, including a special presentation of Nelvana's Rock and Roll with co-founder Clive Smith at the Moscow International Film Festival. And if you have any questions for our panelists today, please make sure to drop them and submit them through the YouTube live chat. But with that, I'll pass it off to Lori to introduce our panelists.
Hello, everybody. I'm very excited about this. I'm very honored to participate in this super exciting, awesome panel. And thank you to Nelvana and everybody, Matt and Jason. So with no further ado, I'd like to introduce our prestigious panel. And I'll start with Amy Steinberg, who is the Emmy-nominated co-creator and executive producer of Esme and Roy, HBO Max. Amy got her start at Nickelodeon, where she was the producer on Blue's Clues, Blue Room, and Team Yumi Zumi. In addition to Esme and Roy, Amy co-created Chicky Poo and Fluff, Barnyard Detectives, Nickelodeon, and Words with Puffballs, Sesame Studios. I love these names. Dustin Ferrer. Dustin Ferrer is a children's television writer, creator, producer, and despite what her name suggests, a woman. She is the co-creator of Esme and Roy and has developed several unannounced projects currently in production. Dustin has been nominated for 7 Emmys and won twice, super wow, for her work on Esme and Roy, Peg and Cat, Wonder Pets, and Third and Bird. In addition, she has written for many preschool programs, including Muppet Babies, Bubby Guppies, Daniel's Tiger's Neighborhood, and Wally Kazam. Wow, that's so cool. Mike Fallows, Canadian Mike Fallows, hello, has directed numerous series and specials, including the Emmy Award series Roly Poly Ollie, which won 3 Emmys. Jane and the Dragon, The Future is Wild, nominated for 3 Emmys, including Best Direction, and Barbar and the Adventures of Badoo. Mike has just completed directing the 2nd season of Emmy and Canadian Screen Awards nominated Esme and Roy, a co-production between Nelvana and Sesame Workshop. Dan Clermont, hello Dan, Born and raised in Ottawa, Dan Clermont graduated from Sheridan College's classical animation program, then the computer animation program 2001-2002, before working at several studios in design, cleanup, and 2D animation in Flash and Harmony. In 2004, Dan moved to Toronto to work at Nelvana in 2D and 3D animation, modeling, and rigging across a variety of projects. Promoted to animation supervisor in 2016, Dan's first series to supervise animation moved him overseas to Manila, Philippines, for 3 months. Since then, Dan has supervised some great animation teams, including Frankie and the Zuzu Pets, Wishfart, Esme and Roy, and the Thomas and Friends, All Engines Go Short, and has recently started supervising the animation on Nelvana's latest co-production with Discovery Kids Latin America, Super Wish. That's super cool. Melissa Graham, hi, is a Daytime Emmy nominated animation producer with over 21 years experience. Her career began as a traditional animation artist, contributing to well-known properties such as Franklin, 16, Bob and Margaret, Jake and Tutu, George and Martha, and Maggie and the Ferocious Beast, before pivoting her career to pursue producing, where she has grown to become an award-winning producer for both 2D and 3D children's content. Melissa has produced internationally renowned properties such as Handy Manny, Bubby Guppies, Max and Ruby, and most recently, Esme and Roy, and is currently producing the second season of Agent Binky, Pets of the Universe, as well as contributing to a feature development property and an internal IP in development at Nelvana. That's so cool, Mel. Now we're on to Melanie Grisanti. Melanie Grisanti is Senior VP of Production Management at Sesame Workshop, the media and education nonprofit organization behind Sesame Street. She is a production executive with over 25 years experience in children's media production across platforms. She currently oversees production of Sesame's award-winning creative content, leading teams managing multiple productions in live action and animation, including the Sesame Street series and specials, the animated series Esme and Roy, and the live action streaming series Ghostwriter and Helpsters. As VP and head of animation, Olexa Hewryk oversees all animation production at Sesame Workshop for both series and animated specials, including Esme and Roy, the Mecha Builders, Furry Friends Forever, The Monster at the End of This Story, and Bae's Block. Prior to joining Sesame Workshop in 2014, Olexa was an Emmy Award-winning director and producer of preschool content with over 20 years of experience in the industry. His credits include Esme and Roy, Peter Rabbit, Little Einstein's Word World, Little Bill, and Blue's Clues. He has won multiple Emmy Awards for Silvergate's Media's Peter Rabbit, Word World, and Nickelodeon's Little Bill. Produced by Corus Entertainment's Nelvana, a world-leading international producer and distributor of children's animated and live-action content together with Sesame Workshop, the nonprofit educational organization behind Sesame Street, and nominated for 4 Daytime Emmy Awards, including Outstanding Preschool Children's Animated Series twice. Esme and Roy follows the adventures of the best monster sitters in Monsterdale. Esme and Roy are best friends and have become experts at using creative games and mindfulness strategies to solve little monsters' big problems. With lovable characters who spark strong emotional connections among preschoolers, Esme and Roy use the power of play to help younger monsters through relatable situations like trying new foods and feeling scared during loud thunderstorms. Season 2 recently wrapped production and is currently airing on Treehouse in Canada, HBO in the US, and in nearly 30 countries around the world. That's really so awesome and so impressive. So the inspiration behind the series, now we can start with the questions and the fun stuff. And I'm really excited to ask and find out and learn more about the series. So I'm going to ask Amy and Dustin, this question is for you. How did you come up with Esme and Roy, and are you able to share the inspiration behind the series?
I'll start. Well, Dustin and I, I guess 6 years ago now, we were asked to pitch a bunch of ideas for shorts that would be broadcast on Sesame Studios, the Sesame YouTube channel. So we just had a big brainstorm and we came up with, what was it, like 10 ideas, Dustin? Even more?
Yeah, I think it was a lot. A lot of ideas.
A
We
lot
were
of
working
ideas.
on separate coasts and had a shared document with a bunch of ideas.
They were all really good,
Yeah.
really good. But we had also been clued into the fact that Sesame was looking to pursue development and production on a show about monsters. So we included some monster concepts in our packet. And one was it was actually an interactive concept where a young boy was, or maybe not that young, but a male protagonist was watching a bunch of baby monsters at a daycare and asking the home viewer for help. And it was that concept that Sesame wanted to dive into a little further and see if it had legs to become a long form idea. Dustin, do you want to pick up?
No, that's exactly what happened. And yeah, I mean, I think it was a good lesson for me, at least, in just sort of saying yes to any opportunity. We had no idea that YouTube short ideas could possibly turn into 2 series of a show that we love to make. I guess I'll add that from there, we developed something pretty similar to the show that ultimately got made, except Sesame also asked us to add one of their characters. So the original pitch had Grover in it.
Oh.
And we had Esme and Roy as the characters they are now, but Grover would sort of send them out on missions and tell them who they were babysitting, and also give them supplies for the day that of course, like, he would get tangled up in, and he would make mistakes and sort of omit important information that they would discover later about the monsters. So yeah, and then when HBO saw the pitch, they decided that it could stand on its own as an original IP without Grover. So we love Grover, but I think, yeah, it was a good decision to have.
Grover. But Roy is silly enough to.
Yeah. So thank you for Olexa and Dustin and Amy again. I'm sure, as we all know, rarely does the first concept become the final series. So are you able to share how the series evolved into the award-winning series it is today?
Sorry, I was muted. That someone's going to have that, and it's usually me. Hi, everybody. Just a pleasure to be on this panel. I'll just jump in and say that I wasn't around at the workshop until the show was greenlit. I was actually brought on to work with Dustin and Amy on it. But I think what is very clear, and always was clear with this concept, that it had this brilliant idea of a human character babysitting monsters, and the really relatable aspect that was, and from what Dustin and Amy were just talking about, that was there in the original pitch, and it is there in the final series, and it really is the heart of the series. And through all of the twists and turns and development, the strength of the concept that Dustin and Amy pitched was really what kept propelling the show. I think our head of EVP at Sesame, Kay Wilson Stallings, I think brought it to HBO Max, and basically it was one piece of art and a verbal pitch, and that pretty much sealed the deal on picking up that series. And that speaks to just the strength of the concept that Amy and Dustin had for the series. And I think that it has been always ever present, and through all of the permutations of development and animation, that has always stayed true for the series.
Okay, great. I have a question for Melanie. Melanie. Esme and Roy was the first animated series from Sesame Workshop in years. Why did you want to step back into animation? And are you also able to share why Nelvana was the perfect partners to help bring Esme and Roy to life?
Well, this team that's on this Zoom was why they're the best partners. I'm just kidding, but Mel and Mike and everybody. But kind of stepping backwards, I mean, Sesame's best known for our curriculum and puppets, but we were always looking to grow the brand and broaden the audience base. with content in a variety of genres. And animation was always integral to Sesame Street. The little films that we put in, and it's always been part of Sesame, and this was a logical next step. And since Esme and Roy was our first venture in a long time, since Dragon Tales probably, into animation, the new technology and changes and everything, it was super important for us to try to team up with the right partners. So how did we know? I feel like we went to Scott Dyer because, we knew Scott, and I know Kay had worked with him before, and he came back to us and he suggested a 50-50 co-venture. And that's when I was brought on. And that is something that was new. That partnership was new to me and to Sesame, and because it's 50-50 in both a creative and a production finance aspect. And it proved to be so beneficial in so many ways. Not only, they have the amazing distribution of Treehouse and their distribution throughout the world, but we were super excited about the vast experience in 2D animation, the teams and creating unique looks, and their vast resources. Dustin and Amy wanted a unique storybook look. And I think that's part of what really makes, Esme and Roy stand out. And they also brought Toon Boom, which is, owned by Corus, and, helped us develop the amazing textured look that Esme and Roy has. I could keep going. I know you're going to talk about the look later, so I'm going to defer that. But I think that the process and the partnership has been amazing. Nelvana, we led the scripts, but they led the rest of it from, design all the way through post. But we both had opportunities for input at every stage. And, I feel like, Amy was a frequent flyer on Porter Airlines, going up for all the records and mixes, and we partnered together on storyboard kickoffs and animation kickoffs, and I think our teams really worked well together. And I'm going to do a little shout out for Melissa, who is one of the great problem solvers and solutions oriented producers I've ever worked with. She always learns how to get to yes. She knows how to get there, and I feel like it was a good marriage. And I'm sorry we just never had our wrap party.
Yes.
Not
No.
We're still having that wrap party.
We're still having
We
it.
will.
We are still having
With
it.
masks on.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
Well, that's really cool. That's really amazing evolution of the series. It's so impressive. I have a question for Mike and Melissa. Esme and Roy has a beautiful soft aesthetic. We were talking about Toon Boom just a second ago, with so many sweet textures. Could you tell us more about why that was done and how that was achieved?
Mike, did you want to start, or?
Sure, if you want. Basically, we were looking for a sort of an illustration look for the show, like a storybook kind of approach. And then also, because Toon Boom is part of Nelvana, we're always looking for opportunities to push what it is capable of doing. And also for that reason, we had the ability of going to Toon Boom and saying, this is what we want to try and create, and they could create the tools for us to do it. So we went after this sort of textured look. And I'm not very technical, so I can't really speak much to how it was achieved, but we certainly needed to have something that would be something that we could sustain through a whole series. We also needed to have some special things. For example, there's a textured edge to everything, but if you go to a close-up, if that textured edge remains the same all the time, then it's going to become very big and ugly looking. So we needed some special abilities to dial the texture up and down depending on how close the shot was. And there was definitely a lot of challenges. Mel could speak to some of the challenges, but we had to create an original pipeline, in fact, to manage.
How-
Which
Yeah,
which
good.
needed to it needed to evolve as we went. So I think that was key, is as we all got together and collaborated. Toon Boom was key, as we would reach out and describe and try to show examples, and then they would do some R&D and come back to our tech team and share with us some of those tools. So it was honestly, it was an ongoing process. And I'm sure you'll hear several of us do shout outs to artists. There were over 100 artists, each season that was contributing, and being, I'm honored to be able to have produced both seasons, but there are so many animators, artists, painters I'd love to be able to shout out. We had some great designers who were then just really willing to work with the process and hear some of the tools and options and try them out, because that can also be challenging. The schedule is tight, so you don't have a lot of time to do that R&D. So a lot of it was a bit stressful, definitely, throughout the process, but everybody rose to the challenge. Kieran Shager was, she was basically one of the individuals that was on from the start of season 1, and she really helped to, she's amazing with Photoshop. So she really brought a lot of the artists brought some of their expertise from other programs into Harmony and just helped find our way. The textures were definitely a very unique look for the series. So that's something that we had to work with. And then when Dan would join, was then trying to see how that would all move. So that's why it definitely was a process that kept evolving.
Yeah, it's always tricky, when you try something new, as this was for the program. You're keeping your eye open for things that are going to be restrictive later on when you start moving the characters around. And we did run into some things for sure, but we were able to sort of work through them.
What kind of, sorry, go ahead.
Like textures, say, that are on a body of a character, and when the character moves and those textures stretch, for example, and become awkward looking, there's that sort of problem. Or where limbs meet bodies and that texture is sort of overlapping at that point, there's challenges there. But ultimately, I think we were all really happy where it landed.
Definitely. I remember at the very beginning getting an email when I think we were working on the sponge or something, where the prop, it was like the first prop, and it took 8 hours to render. And I went, "Ooh,
Wow.
That's not going to be sustainable." And so, the solutions came from there,
Yeah.
We were very nervous at that point.
And that scene, I think, is ingrained in all of our collective memories.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Mel, I'm very curious. You mentioned before, you were talking about you had to create an original pipeline. How much of an original from, let's say, whatever might have been a standard leading up to, like, what do you mean by that?
It's interesting because if I only had my pinup chart from my desk at the studio, which literally is a flow chart. Typically, in 2D, you don't really have textures. I mean, we moved into this production introducing textures. So typically, you'd go from your color keys and you'd move through the process. But because those textures were so integral for the look, it sort of had to veer off, similar to how in 3D you end up, you go into modeling, you go into texturing, and you sort of meet and you merge back together before animation. So that was the challenge. And again, like we were mentioning, because this was the first time having these textures in 2D, it was definitely a learning process for everyone in the studio. It was very new. So people pulled from their resources, and we did our best to just collaborate along the way. And I think now if we were to go back, and we learned so much, which was part of the process. Toon Boom is fantastic because we have that. They literally are like a speed dial on our phones.
Wow.
Where there's key people in the studio who can reach out to them at any time. And they're there to support production. So they're currently helping on productions in-house, which makes it really great to see that program evolve.
Awesome. I have another question now for Mike, Olexa, and Amy and Dustin, if you have anything to add. The characters are adorable and expressive. Could you share how the character design developed? And where did my rest of my question go? Okay, sorry guys, sorry. This is, again, I'm gonna repeat myself. It's 1955, back in the twilight. Could you share how the character design developed and changed to be the iconic characters we know and love?
I can jump in on this. I think we really worked closely, all of us, really relying on Mike and his team. We had some very, I think for the series, we really looked to Nelvana to help us with the visual development. That was an ongoing process. And as Mike and Melissa alluded to, and Mike was really instrumental in sort of guiding that process in the studio and ensuring we had all the resources we needed to get that storybook look and really put that bar there and then sort of go with that brief to Toon Boom and say, now let's make it move. And that was a long process, but a part of that was really bringing sort of the strongest designers, I think, and then Nelvana has so many of them, to Melissa's point, but we had Nika Myers, who took a lead on a lot of the character design and did a lot of the color work on the series, and was really fantastic and instrumental in really getting Esme and Esme's design, which was a challenge. We went through a lot of different versions, and there was a lot of iterations. And Mike through that whole process, which was, very, very kind of him, because we all were, like for every email from Nelvana to like, when's that next character design coming in? And he guided that process, I think, beautifully. And then we also had Brad Coombs, who's a really talented designer as well at Nelvana at the time, did these just beautiful sketches, black and white, he has a beautiful hand. And really, I would say that he sort of gave us sort of the scenes from the show. Suddenly, Esme and Roy playing music and all these little monsters dancing around. And so he was that first visualizer of the show, and we're like, that's it.
I think he helped to develop the characters, honestly. His drawings were so full of character, and the acting was there. So I'm sure it got into our heads, and
it really did. He set a high bar, and I think if we look, it's funny, in advance of this meeting, I was sort of looking through all the emails, and I was like, wow, they did not change that much. Simon and some of the other little characters, very true to his original design, and
Nice.
and it's a testament to the talent at Nelvana and the team that Mike brought to bear on the project.
I also just wanted to mention really quickly that we, very early on when we were working on the visual development for the pitch, Dustin and I had found an artist, a French children's book illustrator named Dan Kerleroux, he's the one who did the concept art that for Esme and Roy primarily, that really established the tone for those characters. That Nelvana then took those designs and brought them to life and made them animatable rigs and fleshed out their designs for animation. But the ideas really were rooted in those original concept drawings. And we were so lucky to have come across this guy, because he just really got what we wanted.
Great. I have another question as well for Amy and Dustin as well. Music is a big part of the series. It's fabulous. I love it. It's so cool. And with song and pinnacle moments of every episode, can you share why it was important to make these moments musical?
So in every episode, there is what we internally called a calm down song, which is the music that comes along when Esme calms down a monster after a monster meltdown. And then there's also an original song. And from a writing perspective, we were really concerned about those calm down moments, because you're building towards conflict. You finally get to a place of sort of panic, and then it's like, record scratch, now let's calm down. And we were really afraid that it was just going to suck the life out of those scenes. And so it was important for us to add music to add emotion to it. And we had amazing composers who were able to do that. I think the 3 songs that we used in season 1 were each written by each composed by a different composer. And then we added another one, a fourth song, the second season. But I will say those moments that we were so worried about really came to stand out, I think, to kids and adults as an emotional and special and signature moment in the series. So we couldn't, be happier with the way those turned out. And then in terms of the original songs, writers would write all the lyrics in-house, and we would work on those. And then we worked with really amazing composers to bring those songs to life. And they added a lot of energy and genre play depending on the episode. So we're very, very fortunate to work with really talented musicians.
The underscore as well. I remember seeing, and Mike, I know this is your favorite part of the process too. I remember the first time we laid music into the picture, to a cut, and Dustin and I had really been inspired by sort of like a Django Reinhardt jazz sound, which just matched perfectly. And our brilliant composer, Jonathan Evans, came up with this very signature sound, which just brought, it was night and day as far as telegraphing all of the emotional content of the episode once the music was added.
For Dan and Mike, with every 11-minute episode featuring original music, what were some of the challenges with animating the songs? And did you find some animators enjoyed animating or choreographing these musical moments?
There were, we get the storyboards for the dance sequences, and those are usually pretty challenging compared to the average animation scene. But there were some animators who really took those scenes on, and they delivered some amazing work. Like it was really fun to see they really injected life into these characters. We get these like stale little cutouts, and then you can see these characters dance. Like I remember there's a scene with Roy dancing that one of our seniors did. It was just amazing. Yeah. Wow.
And there's definitely some production challenges that come up when you have an original song in every episode, because I think we would have to turn out a song maybe every 2 weeks, something like that. Wow. Yeah. And the songs absolutely had to be done pre-storyboard. So it's an interesting challenge. And then what Dan was saying about the choreography. I mean, not all of the songs involve dancing necessarily. Some of them, it was actions that happened to music, but not necessarily just dancing. But I feel for Dan, I mean, the challenge if there's dancing is not every animator has the ability to animate dancing.
Yeah, that's totally
true. You have to be able to match the right person to it.
Right. For Melanie and Olexa, can you speak to Sesame's mission to help kids grow smarter, stronger, and kinder, and how this mission influenced the production of Esme and Roy?
Sure,
you want to take that, and I'll tag
Yeah,
in?
I'll jump in. I mean, at the core of every show that we produce is the workshop's mission, which is to create content that'll help children become smarter, stronger, and kinder. And in the case of Esme and Roy, it was really the mindfulness curriculum and helping kids self-regulate and feature those techniques in every episode. As well as learning through play, which is at the two main pillars for the series. And we really focused on, Esme and Roy modeling that play. We found through research that there is unfortunately a lot less of that in-house play that's happening. So Esme and Roy was focused on really encouraging that imaginative play. We used a lot of everyday objects in every episode. When building a castle or when playing, pirates, then we had sort of old paper tubes as our swords. And so we're trying to really encourage and model for children, but also parents at home, how this sort of extended play can happen after the show's over. And I think especially in the year we've had, I think it's just resonated tremendously. the focus and that sort of mindfulness that Esme models on every episode, I think has been invaluable for kids.
Wow.
Definitely. I just want to, when you said how it influenced the production, I think every single one of us had a glitter jar on our desk, which is what they use in the show, where you put glitter and water and some soap and you shake it, and it sort of mirrors kids' emotions when they're all, oh, there you go. And all their emotions are all mixed up. And then they watch the glitter fall down, and, you calm down. And we all had that. So when we were stressed out in production, I took my glitter jar and, went away to it. So not only did it make the kids smarter, stronger, and kinder, but it kind of filtered to the rest of us as well.
And I think it's important to just what Dustin mentioned earlier. You're in preschool television for, as we've been, we're all sort of veterans. It was amazing to see some of that research. We were all worried about those moments with the glitter jar, and that, this is going to be a really slow point. And what we found out is that's when the audience leaned in. They were so attuned to what the little monster was feeling in that moment. And they were so, invested. That it really became one of the most powerful moments in the show.
Wow, that's amazing. Amazing.
Amy and I got an amazing video from a friend who, this little boy watching the show with like tears in his eyes, and you could just see the empathy on his face watching this little monster. And just, it was, to me, I was like, oh, this is really something special once we saw.
Wow, that's really
that way.
So important, especially as you say right now these days.
Yep.
So I have a question for Melissa. Nelvana is not only celebrating its 50th anniversary this year, a major milestone for any animation studio, so congratulations, but also its impact on the Canadian and international animation studio. What are some of the things we can look forward to from Nelvana?
We are busy, is what I can say. Where do I start? Well, first off, I think the big, obviously this is definitely as a nod to our 50th anniversary. So this is basically like a kickoff week. Our 50th anniversary celebrations continue for a year. So I don't know if everyone knows that, but so that's exciting. So there's some other, events coming up. I know there's some steps happening where for 50 stories to be submitted and to talk about, people's experiences over the 50 years. There's also definitely going to be perhaps a documentary. So there's lots of fun things coming up. But as far as Nelvana and what's going on in-house, there's several productions underway. Original IPs are a big, they're a really important part of the studio and our forward thinking and just what's ahead. So as you mentioned, I'm producing the second season of Binky, which was an original, and that's with Red Knot, DKLA, and with Treehouse it's airing season 2. And then we also have Super Wish was greenlit, and that was an original from 2 in-house crew members of Nelvana. And then there's several things in development. So I think what's important for Nelvana is, live action, original IPs, and just the partnerships that we've currently have and more that we look forward to building and to, working with Sesame was terrific. And I think it's, we look forward to more opportunities to work together.
So I asked Melanie and Olexa again. There's so many great things happening at Sesame Workshop. Are you able to share what's next for Sesame when it comes to animation?
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in, and Mel, pass it on to you after. I mean, we are really busy as well in animation. We, Esme and Roy was one of the first animated series in a very long time at the workshop. We are presently working on 2 animated series that have been announced. Mecha Builders is the first one, which features some of our beloved Sesame Street characters, and will be premiering next year. Bees Block, which is a new IP, and that one will also be premiering next year. And then we also have been producing several animated specials. We had a first animated special last year, premiered on HBO Max, which was based on everybody's favorite book, The Monster at the End of the Book. And it really turned out to be, I think, a really beautiful animated special. And it will be on PBS in the States this year. And then we are introducing a new character to Sesame Street, which is very exciting. And that character will first appear as an animated character this summer on HBO Max. And her name is Tango. And it's Elmo's new little puppy. There will be a premiere, I believe, in this coming month in weeks.
I think it's August 7th, I think.
Yeah, or maybe in a week. So, Furry Friends Forever, Elmo Gets a Puppy, and it's our second animated special, and we're really excited about it. So
that's really, really very, very cool. And I have a question for Dan. I understand there were up to 27 animators at any given moment working on the show. Can you share some insights on what it was like managing so many animators, and how do you ensure the consistency, character animation, when there are so many various touch points with altering styles?
Yeah, communication was very important. We had some good reference to work with that we could demonstrate to the animators to see, okay, this is the type of movement we're going for. And there was a lot of back and forth, especially with Mike and with Sesame, especially during the first 2 episodes. That's when the style kind of gets sorted out. And then once that was done, it was a lot simpler to share those scenes, those episodes with the animators to show them what to aim for. We also had some seniors, some very talented seniors that would guide or mentor the juniors. And to get them on the right track. So it was an ongoing learning process, but like everyone was so talented and wanted to do such good work. You know, it made my job a lot easier.
Wow, that's really, really cool. And so this whole process of the guiding and the mentoring, are there any kind of particular moments or any kind of like scene or something that you remember that was like, these two, this really hit it off because somebody just gave a cool suggestion, or some kind of synergies between 2 particular animators, or
well, not any specific examples, but because this happened a number of times, but some animators had some suggestions for some scenes, and they would get the storyboard and they say, what if the character did something like this? And then we go to Mike to make sure that was okay. And as long as it looked okay, and as long as it fit in with the story, that was usually accepted. And it gives it a little bit more personal flavor to some of the animation. So that was really cool.
Great. I'm wondering if there's anything else. I think we're going to be getting some questions from people out there in the Twilight space. So, little abstraction. So animation. Okay, so here's some stuff coming in from outer space. Animation studios have relied on the creativity of face-to-face interaction in the past. How has social distance? Now we're getting heavy. How social distancing? How has it impacted production? I'm going to read this. I don't know if these are different questions. Let me just figure this out. Now we're back in live TV land. Okay, so how has social distancing impacted productions? Let's just answer that question, and we'll take it. I'll go to the next after. Anybody?
I can take that one. As far as, Nelvana, we basically, within a week, it was starting. We were deploying computers. There was a fantastic task force in the studio that was helping to basically get every production, everyone's computers, security checks, the whole 9 yards, and to get everybody set up at home. So I know at the time we were underway with Esme and Roy, and you have to think of the process from script to screen. So we were literally still recording, and we were still delivering shows. So, we literally we really got involved in this sort of platform, is figuring out a way to how can we hear the actors recording from home? Is that setup okay? It's fed through the record studio, and then we're able to still get involved with giving them direction, virtually, really. And then
Mhm.
how do we check scenes? How, for Dan to be able to stay connected with, upwards of 27, 29 animators, and that mentorship that then you had to navigate. It was different. You couldn't just get up from your desk and walk over and show someone an example. So I think, I have to hats off to everyone who was part of that process. And I know, talking to colleagues at other studios, we all were thrown into it. No one really could have
Yeah.
prepared for that.
Yeah.
But I think it's basically making sure that the communication was solid,
Yeah.
and really we didn't miss deliveries. And I know internally at
Nope.
Nelvana, the same thing went, was no one skipped a beat, really.
No,
And,
we
and
really
in this
didn't.
case, it was a team that already had been working together
Yeah.
pretty tightly for several years. So,
Mm.
so moving everybody remotely, I mean, there was a lot of adjustments to be made, but we could manage it. But I think the difficult part is actually going forward, because we have a lot. I had a few people on the production that I've never met in person.
Mhm.
And I think the challenge is going to be for younger people. If we don't get back to some sort of normal situation in some way, those
Right.
young people don't have the opportunity to work together with people like us that have experience,
Right.
Yep.
and be working together with us in the same room. And I
Right.
think that's going to be damaging in the future.
So segueing from
Totally
that,
agree.
Melanie, sorry, did you want, if you want, okay. I just wanted to ask, so someone else is asking, what advice would you give to someone aspiring to be in your role one day? What kind of advice would you give to a young animator or an emerging animator who would want to do what you're
Well,
doing?
For a producer, I'll go with the producer angle. They should go get a job working for Mel, because they'll learn so much. No, I mean, I'm just kidding. No, I'm not kidding, but I mean, really, I've seen people grow under her team, Gita, and it's just, and I feel like find a mentor, stick at it, and yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I would say as a former animator, I think if there's work out there or people that you respect, artists that you want to work with, try to work with them, whether it's a studio that's doing the type of work that you're engaged with, that where you want to be. I think the more you can sort of put yourself out there and challenge yourself, because in our industry in animation, it is what Daniel was saying. It's all, and Mike, it's what you learn from your peers. There's so much that happens at work, especially in animation and design, all of these things that we learn over years of working on productions, that all happens within the studio, within that creative space. And to be able to feed off that regularly, I think is really crucial.
Okay.
And I always tell young people that to leave as many doors open as long as possible, because there are so many roles in animation. It's not just animators and it's not just directors. There's so many roles, and you need to figure out where your strengths are, and what inspires you.
Right.
Because so often, people think, well, I want to direct, but direction is not all fun. There's a lot of management. There's a lot of, it's not all a creative role. So, and so that doesn't fit for everybody. So yeah, people need to be open to try different things and figure out what works for them.
Okay, I have another question. Could the panelists speak to how child development specialists and children's media creators collaborate?
Sure.
I can jump into that one a little bit, but I think we all can speak to it. But I think it is at the core of what we do at the workshop.
Yeah.
If we look at Esme and Roy, and Dustin and Amy can also speak to this, every script that we had, every stage of production, we have curricular advisors and team members. We collaborate with them. It is integrated, it's an active dialogue. For example, Dustin can speak to this. With every script meeting we had weekly, so many discussions about how best to approach whatever the curricular goal for that episode was, and really iterative work to really hone in and get that right. So for us at the workshop, it is, part and parcel of what we do from the beginning through to the end.
Right. I'm just going to read off a few more questions. What are you looking for in a series pitch, and how can I pitch you my idea?
I'll let Alexa take that one.
Yep.
Okay, I'll unmute myself again. All right. So, a mini Bible with just the essential information on a show, on a pitch, on an idea, right? A sample overview of what the concept is, character descriptions, what the world is, giving us that idea, what your vision is for that show. And how this, for us, it's at the workshop, how that concept delivers on our mission to really help kids get smarter, stronger, and kinder, and how it's, delivering on those points for us. You don't have to have curriculum, but if you have a curricular focus, you should include it. And I'd keep it brief and clear, at the most 5 to 8 pages. It's if you don't have curriculum, that's also fine. We have a whole curricular team, and that's something that can be added later, and that's how we work. We're very sort of flexible that way. It has to be a really great idea, like Esme and Roy, which was just so sweet, and there's at that core. And pitches are always welcome anytime. sesamepitches.org. Just please log in and you can upload your pitch.
Okay,
and Nelvana's the same.
And Nelvana's the same. Yeah. We
And
have a healthy development department. So I would say definitely they're always looking for pitches. Athena Georgiaklis is the head of development for Nelvana. We have a lot of energy and a lot of focus is being spent on our DEI team. So a lot of great things are coming there. So I think pitching an idea, everyone has a story to tell. And I think authenticity is really important. So I think, pitch from your heart, pitch for something that you're passionate about. And I think any studio would probably be looking and welcoming pitches. We're looking for content.
Woohoo! Okay, so I guess we only have a few more minutes left. So I guess we'll do these a little quicker. What do you look for in artists? That's the question. What do you look for in artists? Anybody? Is that too broad?
I can speak up because we're always looking for good artists, especially in the animation department. Just a good understanding of the animation principles. We want to see good timing, good weight. We look at demo reels often, so something that grabs your attention right away. That's you want to get some eyeballs on your work.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit of a complex question because it's the big challenge is to match artists to the production. So somebody could be a fantastic artist, but they don't necessarily the right fit for that particular production.
Is Nelvana open to pitches for new series? And if so, what are the requirements? Just reading the questions.
Yes, and same thing. I would say, I know Aliza's on, I think she's listening in, but we can definitely provide some links and some direct contacts. We have, like I said, a development department who are looking for pitches. We're looking for original content. And content driven, creative driven content is very key right now for the studio. And I think, again, just along the lines of what Olexa mentioned, the studio wants to see your concept, hear about characters. Character driven content is it's key. And I think, we can definitely provide some contact information for people to reach out to and to pitch to the studio.
Great. There is an email address. I'm not. Am I supposed to read this out? Yes, I am. Okay. Okay. So I'm just going to do things consecutively. There is an email. I'm going to say it now before I forget. Then I have to go to the next question. Info at nelvana.com. Info at nelvana.com. Check your spam box. Okay. Last question. What is your advice to those looking to work in development? And after having a coffee chat with someone in industry, How can I maintain that connection so it's not just a one-time thing? We all know those at the film festivals. Yep. How do we sustain that amazing meeting we had and say, bye, I'm looking forward to the email, and you don't hear it back? What do we do?
I mean, I can take that one, just as far as, you know, from an earlier question, you know, how do you achieve your goals? Where are you looking to go? So I think if you've made contacts with people that in the industry and there's something about their job or what they're aspiring to do, remain in touch and take some advice from them. Connect yourself, try to get in, whether it's an internship or find something that is of interest to you. And I think that's the biggest recommendation I would give to anyone is don't give up. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, and just be yourself, and know it takes a while. You won't necessarily land your dream job right away, but just don't give up, you know, and network.
Okay, great. So basically, I'm going to just add that to clarify for the email address, for any pitches to Nelvana, please do email the info@nelvana.com. All concepts for all demographics, not just preschool. Okay, so I guess I'm going to read off the end part. And first, I want to thank everyone. It's just been an awesome panel. So I'd like to thank Amy Steinberg, Dustin Ferrer, Mike Fallows. I have one more message coming in. Oh, there it is. It's the same thing that okay. Amy Steinberg, thank you. Dustin Ferrer, Mike Fallows, Dan Clermont, Melissa Graham, Melanie Grisanti, and Olexa Hewryk for joining us tonight. Thank you so much, as well as our friends at Nelvana and Sesame Workshop. Congratulations to Nelvana for your 50th year anniversary as a world-leading producer, distributor, and a licensor of children's content. Visit nelvana.com for tonight's event recording and to learn more about upcoming events and celebrations Nelvana has planned. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. Behind the scenes look at Daytime Emmy nominated series Esme and Roy. We hope you enjoyed this panel and have a great night, everybody.